Hello, I'm Robert Scoble, and you're watching WorkFast TV, which is about how the internet is changing work. This show is supported through the generous support of SAP. SAP provides software that helps both large and small businesses manage their business, lower their costs, and bring more services to their business relationship partners. Thank you to SAP for supporting social media and this show. My guest today is Rebecca Jacoby, Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer at Cisco. She will give us her perspective of the changes happening to work thanks to the internet from inside one of the world's great companies. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thanks, Robert.
It's a real honor to have you here.
Happy to be here.
Now, most of my readers or listeners around the world probably know of Cisco as the company that builds these machines that go inside data centers and manage a lot of the internet that we don't see. So a lot of people don't have really a concept of what a router looks like because they've never been inside a data center. In fact, most of my friends who work at Google have never even been inside their own data centers, right? So they have no idea what your box looks like, although they probably have a concept that there's a Cisco box running something somewhere. What's Cisco been working on lately, and how does that relate to your job?
Well, as you mentioned, Robert, the networking equipment and the internet is really the basis of our business and how we actually really do look at the whole technology stack and how we can actually enable our business with IT through the network. But I think it's sort of an interesting thing to start there and talk about how that really enabled businesses to operate differently with new business models in the 90s. And it's still something that we're talking about today is what is the next set of technologies that's going to allow us to allow our customers to enable new business models. And I think the most interesting technologies today have to do with the collaboration technologies, and particularly video, but and how we actually are using that in the enterprise to be able to drive an accelerated productivity for our workforce, bring value to our business, and also allow our customers to bring value to their business using those technologies.
Well, we'll talk a lot about video because one of the coolest products I've seen Cisco do or services is these new telepresence systems.
Right.
And we'll talk
Great
a lot
technology.
about that.
Great technology.
We were talking about that before. But tell me a little bit more about the collaboration stuff that you're seeing and how. Tell me a little bit about your job, first of all, because a lot of people might have a vague idea of what a CIO does.
Right. So, a CIO in any company is, I think, responsible for the technology architecture that enables your business. And I think what the job can be and what it really is at Cisco and what I really enjoy about it is our charter is to enable every move the company makes with IT. And so the company starts with the premise that, the technology is really going to enable everything we do. And I think traditionally people, definitely expect IT organizations to bring some kind of productivity to their enterprise. If you think about on the history of just even automating things, to bring productivity to your enterprise. But the way we look at it is, yes, that's table stakes. What we really want to do is bring, what I call an accelerated productivity to the enterprise through growth enablement and through the ultimate growth enabler, which is innovation. How can we actually use technology to enable our major companies' growth strategies by innovating our products and our services and our processes in a way that it brings a greater value proposition to the business every day so that we can bring value to our customers.
Now, give me a sense of what Cisco looks like, how many data centers you have, and I remember dealing with enterprises in the 90s, right? And it might be a few email servers and a few servers that are keeping some Visual Basic apps going. How is it different today?
Right. Well, it's an interesting question because I think we have a simple landscape compared to most companies our size, especially for how acquisitive we are. We do a lot of acquisitions, but we also have a complex landscape because we are a large company and we're a global company and we're operating globally, and we have done a lot of acquisitions. And so we have 7 major production data centers deployed globally, primarily in California, but we have some other sites around the world. And then we have upwards of 35 data centers where we do development work, where we do our design and development for our products and services that are really deployed broadly, globally. And that's a landscape that we would like to further simplify. And over the next couple of years, we'll be looking at a major data center strategy to upgrade our technology to really take advantage of the virtualization technologies that are available today.
Okay. Virtualization is an interesting one. What's happening there, and how is that changing what you're able to do in the data center?
Mm-hmm. Well, the definition of virtualization broadly in IT today centers around virtualizing some of your data center services that you might offer. People talk about storage, and the big conversation is around virtualizing your servers, which is the place where you're going to virtualize your business process applications, essentially, so that you can get, the basic premise is you're going to get higher utilization out of your equipment. You're going to get more resilient capacity because you can switch from, one virtual machine to another rapidly and without a lot of downtime for your business partners. And so that's kind of the fundamental conversation today, but I think the interesting conversation about virtualization is that the concept really applies across all aspects of IT today, in your data center, of course, but also in your business applications in terms of a services-oriented architecture. But most interestingly to me, again, is sort of in the collaboration technologies, where you can use collaboration technologies that are available today. And what I mean by that is, the various kinds of Web 2.0 tools you have, the various types of video communications that you have. And
you were telling me that you have a studio where you can talk to your thousands of workers, right?
Right. So we have an IPTV studio where I can actually hold a all hands with my 3,000 globally deployed IT employees and have an interactive question and answer session using IM. And we do that regularly. It makes for a great communication strategy, and so that an organization that's deployed globally, that's in a very large company, deployed in multiple functions and so on, we can stay on the same page and keep moving forward and adding value to the company because we have sort of the power of our whole community to go after that with. And I think that's the beauty of these collaboration technologies, is how do you bring, essentially it's virtualizing the individual, right? And so each individual has an ability to participate in their normal work, but also if you think of them as a resource and a knowledge resource, they have the ability to participate in what they're interested in or what maybe they have an expertise in, where they can bring value to the company outside of their normal workflow. And we can use those technologies to bring those kind of communities together in an ad hoc basis to add value.
When I worked at NEC, and this was just a few years ago, it seems like 2002, right? Mm-hmm. The internet was basically a series of web pages that were pretty static and not collaborative, and there was no way other than email to collaborate with people in other groups. Right. Tell me a little bit, what does the internet at Cisco look like, and how do you work with other people, and how is that changing thanks to wikis and blogs and whatnot?
Well, it's an interesting thing. So if I give you a little of the history of the way we've worked at Cisco is, if you go back to the mid-90s, we had sort of a standing saying when you came to be employed at Cisco. And at the time, we were bringing on 500 people a week, if you didn't have time to figure out what was going on or how you were supposed to interact with some process in the business, the standard saying was, it's on the web. So we probably did as good a job of any enterprise at that time of using the web-based tools to really run our company, every aspect of it, HR, supply chain, et cetera. And so what we're doing again today is I think we're looking at these collaboration technologies and how you put them together and use them at scale to do the same thing, to run each aspect of your business process. So, for example, our HR organization is looking at how do I use our WebEx technologies to, for example, right now we're in the process of doing our annual rewards process for our employees. And so HR is using that technology to rapidly, on an ad hoc basis, put as many training classes on demand using the WebEx technology so that every manager in the company knows how to sort of have these conversations and has a resource to help them understand how to have that type of a basic fundamental conversation in the business. So we're doing that in every aspect of the business, and then we're working to do that on an enterprise scale to put the right technologies together to allow these kinds of things to happen where you bring these communities together and collaborate differently.
Yeah, I remember I used to run one of the NetMeeting news groups or websites in 1996, right? And corporations were up in arms. This new video thing was coming out, and it's going to steal all of our bandwidth, and we're going to have to shut down all When you started at Cisco, did you have any clue you would be doing full HD video with three HD screens at one time over the network?
Not at all. In fact, you know, I mentioned to you earlier, I don't really have a traditional IT background. I came out of the supply chain. And again, I started at Cisco in 1995. And I remember going to the first the employee orientation and seeing all this stuff on the web, and also seeing some basic supply chain things like how we were actually providing software downloads to our customer at the time. And it was just, I was like blown away. I was blown away at the time of this is so far advanced from anything I'd ever worked with before. But I didn't see myself yet as the organization that was actually trying to bring that to bear, or at least being a leader in doing that. And it's pretty exciting that that's the way my career has sort of evolved there, and that's really the role of IT at Cisco, to keep looking out there at what the technologies are, what our technologies are, but also what other technologies are available to bring value to the enterprise, and to have the individuals feel valued in doing that and participate to the fullest on their part.
Right. In the data center, I've talked to a lot of people who are managing data centers now. They're really trying to save power because that translates into the bottom line for one, and translates into helping prevent global warming for two. Can you give me a sense, because virtualization plays into that, right? If you can put more services on one box, you save energy. Is that a big push for Cisco?
Right, and it's a big push for, I think, all of our customers. And ultimately, the environmental questions may even come to have some kind of a regulatory driver associated with those in different countries. But as you said, it's good business anyway, because what's green is also cost cutting as a general rule, right? And lowers your total cost of operating your business. And so that is a motivator for anybody, whether they are thinking about green or not. And the look at that is about virtualization, and it is about having a planned architecture that, again, allows you to use your resources in the best and most productive possible fashion. It's really about getting utilization out of every type of resource you have. So you may start in the data center, and you may have an architectural strategy that allows you to get more utilization out of those power using things. But at the same time, you're probably even going to ultimately get more value out of being able to use your data center to manage business operations and other things that maybe even use more energy, like your real estate, like your office building. If you can use your business processes, if you can use the power of your technology to do that, you're going to even be, even get more savings. Or if you're going to use like our Cisco Virtual Office, if you're going to use the ability to create really a true telecommuting, effective telecommuting solution, you can see how you can save in that way. So it goes beyond the data center. It's important in the data center, but goes way beyond the data center. Yeah.
When I was at HP and they showed me the data center of the future, they talked a lot about cooling and putting sensors on machines to help direct cooling. Are you seeing Cisco trying to innovate in that area at all, or?
Specifically,
you're one box inside this huge multi-server.
So specifically, relative to cooling, specifically, no, we're not innovating in the area of cooling. However, I think we're doing a lot of innovative things to move forward the whole concept of virtualization in the data center, and using the network. And the network is a very logical place to manage all of the information flow you have in your business. And so using the network to do that, and being able to further virtualize the data center than really people have effectively been able to virtualize it today, and taking essentially our overall architectural approach to the data center, I think is a place where we're doing some innovation.
You talked about doing a lot of acquisitions at Cisco, and we've certainly seen, give me like 3 or 4 of the ones that you can name right away. WebEx you already named.
Well, the first one was Crescendo, way back in '95, so I'll just give you a little bit of history. But some of the recent ones that I think are really critical, WebEx is a really fascinating, excellent acquisition that is going to be a big centerpiece put together with our unified communications platform that I think is going to allow us to really create some really interesting enterprise class collaboration platforms. Okay. So that's a very interesting acquisition for us. I think Scientific Atlanta is an important acquisition. It really has raised
our... They're going to have the TV stations of the future, aren't they?
Yeah, I would say the whole acquisition has raised our whole level of discussion around video. Yeah. It's not the only place where we've ever done video, but in combination with some of our other video technologies and how you can really manage and use video more effectively. Video is just, you and I discussed this earlier, video is incredibly powerful in terms of how you bring people together, and it's particularly if you're in a global situation, and which is, everyone's in a global situation today. So
you're
video,
on Twitter, you're in a global situation.
Video is very powerful, but from an IT standpoint, sometimes you're looking at it like, oh, this is going to use up all my bandwidth, it's going to use up all my storage, and so there's some aspects of that of how are we really going to manage that, how are we really going to understand the content, how are we really going to move that's important for an enterprise to understand. You can't just let it completely take a life of its own, and so putting those things together, Scientific Atlanta with some of our other video technologies.
For most people who don't know who Scientific Atlanta is, they do encoding and other things.
Right. And essentially they're partnered with the cable, other service providers, and the product that some people may have seen is the set-top box. Yeah. In some locations.
Yeah. If you look at what the Olympics did this year, every 4 years this event happens, right? The first 4 years ago, there was only a few dozen hours of video on. Now there's, I think they said they were going to put 2,200 hours of video up, and it goes from hundreds of thousands of viewers to tens of millions of viewers. Next time it's going to be hundreds of millions of viewers.
And Cisco played a great role in that as well, in delivering that video and being able to have the network NBC really be able to go out there and say, we've got all this footage. How fast can we actually make it into something that's actually presentable and desirable for our viewership? And that's what I'm talking about. Is how fast can you actually move the video, get it to the right people, and have them actually look at it and decide, make decisions about what to show, what not to show, those types of things. And a lot of that is obviously very relevant in the entertainment world, but it's also, I think, going to be more and more relevant in the enterprise space as people use video to communicate in their enterprise.
Yeah, well, let's talk about these telepresence systems, right? So for viewers who haven't been in one, it's a room with a desk with, it looks like a seamless strip of video that you
HD panels.
And it's 3 video panels, right? 1080, is it 1080i video? Or it's HD. So,
it's HD.
And you look in, and it looks like you're sitting right across the desk from people.
Right.
How has that changed what you do? Certainly somebody who travels a lot, I bet you it's affected how much
telepresence is, I think, everyone's favorite solution, that especially at the executive level, but it's not just a matter of the executive level. It's really something that if you see it, you have to see it to know how good it is, and I know you've seen it. I was actually commenting yesterday, one of the things we've been doing in the company for communication purposes, in some instances, is we take videos of people telling their story about something, and then you broadly distribute it in the company. Well, one thing that's been happening lately is we've actually been taking videos of people from Telepresence. Yeah. So they may be in a different location, and the video camera's here, and they're taking the video of the person. And if the camera's not panned back far enough to actually see the screen, you cannot tell. You cannot tell that the person is not actually in the room with you. That's how good it is, right? And so it really changes the whole interaction that people have, and you can build a very high trust relationship with someone, almost as if you met them personally, and sometimes even better, to be honest with you. So for me, it's been great because I can have a lot more customer contact without traveling. Yeah. But even we actually have used it very effectively for very practical solutions. For example, I have a fairly large team in Bangalore, and I needed to hire a vice president level person in Bangalore, which is 21 hours in the air from here to Bangalore. It's not a fun trip.
Even if you have a nice jet,
that's right.
It's not a fun
which
trip.
I don't. In fact, I fly coach. So
See, Rocky, even she gets stuck in coach.
That's our policy. But we were able to identify a candidate in India.
We just went to Berlin, so we were both stuck.
That's only about 11 or 12 hours, I think. So we were able to actually identify a candidate, and have not only myself, but a full suite of executive level interviews, which, we have a more stringent process for that level of executive.
Yeah.
And no one ever had to travel. The candidate never traveled, we never traveled, and we actually, from the time we identified him to the time we hired him, was less than 6 weeks. Yeah. That's unheard of for that kind of long distance travel. He started in December. He turns out to be a phenomenal employee, and you could establish that kind of a rapport on that, and so it really changes how you're operating globally and your quality of life as well.
Yeah. How many meetings in a day now do you do?
I usually
Because you'd probably fly to Germany or India and do 1 or 2 meetings, right?
Yeah. Most of my staff is still in San Jose, so I'd say I do about 1 to 2 meetings a day on average, using Telepresence, either for internal purposes or most of my meetings on Telepresence are with customers.
Yeah. Now, the room systems are really impressive, right? Yeah. And they cost about $300,000 to build a room and put this multi-screen. In your office, you have one of the one-screen versions, right? Right.
It's just a one-screen version. When we did the Telepresence product in general, there was a huge emphasis on the experience, and really, and I think this is a very important concept.
Down to the furniture.
Yeah.
Even. The furniture fools your eye into thinking you're at a desk and talking across the table from someone.
And the way the sound works is actually, I think the sound is almost more fascinating than the video, in that if you walk around the room in these conference rooms, the sound follows you like it would in a normal conference room if you were there live. And so there was a really strong #1 emphasis on the experience that it created. It's not another teleconferencing solution. It's a completely different experience, and that was the focus of the product development. And so the conference room solution, it really takes that to the hilt, even to the extent of, we didn't want a bunch of other stuff on the screen while you're talking to another human being. And so that I think is a pretty important experience. It's still a strong experience, but it's a little bit less focused on that when you have it in your conference room. It's a little bit more. It's still, you see the human being with the same experience and the sound with the same experience, but it's just a little bit lower key. We didn't look at all the amenities in the room and that type of thing. And where the solution is going is, there's different types of environments people want to create, whether they're talking about a board meeting or a larger studio type of setup. And so the technology really can work in different environments like that.
Are you going to be able to call in from home at some point? Because you're on a real high-speed network at Cisco, right? So I think we checked on it. If you wanted one of these in your office, you have to have something like 5.5 meg. 5.5 megabit. That's a lot of bandwidth. My home Comcast line is 1.5 megabit up, and somewhere around 5 down.
Right.
So it's not even
and I know if you
close.
live out farther out in a rural area, like I have a home in Tahoe, and it's even less than that from the upload, the download. And so this is, I think, a challenge for the industry to solve. We do have a product that's available for home use at this point. I think for it to really take off, we're going to continue to work with the service providers and move forward in terms of how the bandwidth really is required. But that's the fun part about it is, that may not be exactly perfect today, but believe me, it's not a next year thing. It's a now and very immediate sort of process to get that to where it can be ubiquitous in the home as well.
Yeah. What have you learned from doing all the acquisitions? Has the data center, the virtualization, has the video played into that? Tell me what Cisco's learned from acquiring so many companies over the last 10 years, and what lessons there might be for other companies.
Well, there's a that's a really broad question in terms of all the learnings we have from acquisitions.
And you have 5 minutes to do it.
So I'll try to answer it from an IT standpoint, since that's my area of expertise. When we do acquisitions, we have found that we need to know, not necessarily in all cases do you want to just sort of assimilate every single thing about the acquisition. You want to be able to go out and take advantage of why did you buy that company? What are they really bringing to the table, and how are you going to continue to get that value? But then how are you going to bring the scale and value that Cisco brings to the table and get a synergy that goes forward in that? And so when we're in IT, we sort of have to look at how can IT help that and how can we not hurt it, right? And so I think when we look at how we want to bring new acquisitions into the fold, the very first thing we have to look at is the communications technologies. There's no question about it. It's even the fundamental, now traditional things like email and voicemail, they become very important to rapidly assimilate these companies so that we can start a communication that doesn't keep them as a separate or a completely separate entity. Now we want to bring the power of both companies together. How do we do that? We do it through the communications technologies.
Yeah.
And the more we can do that with these collaboration technologies, that's a big win. And then, we still have to do what we have to do, which is understand the fundamental transactional scale that you need to do in a business. How do you do order processing? How do you do, financial reporting? How do you combine compensation systems, or should you? Those types of things. And so, it's again, I think it puts IT back right in the square of you need to understand all the aspects of the business and understand how to enable each of them. Using an architecture that allows you to take advantage and reuse things, but being flexible enough to be able to accommodate that these people are sometimes in different countries, in different locations. They have a different technology. Maybe they had a little bit different management style. How do you cope with the realities of how people work?
Yeah.
And that's what the collaboration technology allows you to be more flexible about with the individual.
Yeah. Yesterday I was talking to somebody from Seagate, my other sponsor, and he was telling me he worked at Seagate for like 24 years and watched the hard drive go from huge, a 300 megabyte hard drive that cost $12,000 down to a little half terabyte drive that cost $200. What changes have you seen in your product line and Cisco's product line in just the 13 years you've been there?
Well, Cisco's a great company to work for. It's a place where I've been able to learn more than I ever thought I had the capacity to learn. And when I first worked there, we were really just starting the use of the internet for enterprise use, really the business to business. How do we really do online ordering? How do we really use e-commerce? Really the first instantiation of that. And the interesting thing about that was the technology was bringing to bear, and our technology was bringing to bear the enablement of completely new business models.
Yep.
And it really changed everything. And it's
eBay
a lot of
and Amazon and all that.
It's a lot of fun to work for a company whose products enable that type of thing. And the company strategy is based on taking advantage of market transitions, whether they're technical transitions or whether they're changes in the marketplace. And there's a lot of things on the horizon right now that sort of fit together with our product strategies that we think, particularly using the collaboration technologies and video, while we're really virtualizing architectures in the base business, putting those things together is going to allow us to enable new business models again, for not only for ourselves but for our customers. So we're in the process of doing that ourselves and trying to make concrete examples of doing that and help our customers find ways to use these technologies to do that again. And so it's kind of an exciting thing for me to see the opportunity to do that again with the company, and I believe we're in a good position to do that.
What's the challenges of running a multi-thousand person group in 1 minute or less, right? Give me an MBA in 1 minute or less.
Well, it's not really that difficult. It's, at the end of the day, your job as a leader is to, try to set a direction for the organization and then put everyone in the organization in a position to follow it. And you don't want them to follow it blindly. You want them to bring to bear their own talent so that you can expand on that and really adapt your vision and move it in a direction where you bring the power of everyone's talent to bear and do that going forward. So how do you do that? You try to set a pretty crisp basic direction and vision of where we're going. For us, that's enabling every move the company makes with IT. And then you put the best talent in place to do it, and then you have to let them do it. And if you're lucky, you get to use technology to allow them to do that better.
Well, thank you so much for being on this show.
Very nice to meet you, Robert.
It's been an honor. We're going to stick around after the show and have a little chat on Kyte.tv, KYTE.tv. Next week's guest is Greg Brockaway, president and co-founder of TripIt, which is an online service that helps you when you travel, when you do get out of the video space and get out there. So that'll be interesting because that service, you email your flight plan over to TripIt, and it brings you all sorts of interesting stuff back there. What else is going on? We have about 30 seconds. What is next for Cisco in 10 seconds or less?
Well, next for Cisco is to really drive home the use of these collaboration technologies to be able to bring value to our business and to really drive a new era in virtualization of the data center.
Thank you very much. Well, thanks for watching, and now get back to work.